Military Veterans Affairs Committee. My name is Mark Freouf, M-A-R-K-F-A-F-R-E-E-O-U-F, and I'm a sergeant in the Nebraska Army National Guard and have been a member of the Guard for 24 years. I also work for Senator Clements. However, I am here on my own time and own accord, and my comments don't necessarily represent those of my boss. I want to thank Senator Brewer and Tony for their work on this bill. It's greatly needed. I love my part-time job in the Guard, being a musician in the 43rd Army Band. I tried out for the band and made it as a senior in high school. I joined the Guard because of family tradition, my dad was in the same unit, and to be able to support my state and country in a unique way. In 24 years, I've been through some things in the military experience that make for good, ordinary military life lessons and stories, but nothing compares to the last couple of years since this vax mandate started, which have been hell. I have come to this hearing because I feel compelled to speak out and tell the legislature and anyone listening what soldiers like myself who did not wish to receive the vaccine have been through. After 24 years, the last 2 of which have felt like a hostage situation, I believe I'm entitled. I have been appalled with the unnecessary, harmful, illegal, morale-reducing nonsense the Biden administration has dragged myself and many other soldiers in my unit through with this so-called vaccine mandate. Just because we don't want to take an experimental injection for an illness that is largely dangerous only to unhealthy or older soldiers. 4 soldiers in my unit of 40, including myself, submitted religious exemptions. 4 or 5 others did not want to get the jab, but finally capitulated because they were afraid of what might happen or didn't have the patience or legal chops to face the tidal wave of paperwork, nonsense, and restrictions associated with fighting the military. I don't hold anything against those soldiers. I think it's a tragedy, however, that they were essentially coerced by the tricks of Biden administration into taking an EUA vaccine against their will. My religious exemption packet, which protected me from this madness, was nearly 40 pages long before it was done. Included my own letter, 2 pastoral support letters, a military chaplain letter, and counseling from a military medical provider and my commander, just to name a few of the parts. Now that the new Congress has taken over and Speaker McCarthy mandated that the DoD rescind the vax mandate in the Defense Authorization Bill, I can finally start to breathe a sigh of relief. However, not everything is automatically okay now. My career is potentially affected by this situation. Last year, I was not allowed to travel orders due to my primary military education training called ALC. This could affect me when the retention board looks at my packet next month, sees I'm technically not a non-promotable E5, and then decides whether or not to retain me. I was also not allowed to do annual training with my unit last year and missed out on pay and retirement points due to that. I will be allowed to do AP this year. I'm still waiting on guidance for when travel orders will become available again this year to do training. I have handed out a large packet which included some key documents which came to light in this experience. The first is Secretary of Defense Austin's original vax mandate memo from 21st August 2021, also referenced in the bill. I highlighted the sentence that states, those with previous COVID-19 infection are not considered fully vaccinated. With that one sentence, Austin bypassed Army regulation in a memo. The part of the reg essentially repealed by this one memo can be found in AR 40-562, section 2.6, which I also included, which allows for a medical exemption based on serologic test, documented infection, or similar circumstance. You can read this on page 6 of AR 40-562, and it's mentioned 2 other places in the AR as well. I had COVID in November of 2020 and tested positive for antibodies a year later, October 2021. And I'm running low on time, so if I run out, if somebody could yield me a little time, I'd appreciate it. If we were following policy instead of bypassing it, I would have already passed the requirement based on prior immunity. The next document is the first few pages of a FRAGO from TAG, which laid out 30 June 2022 as the deadline for all M-Day soldiers to be vaccinated. It also claimed that the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine had been FDA approved on 23rd of August 2021, the day before Secretary Austin's memo came out. Many legal groups dispute this claim. Comirnaty was the actual approved and legally licensed vaccine, and BioNTech, which the military was using, was legally distinct and remained emergency use authorized, vaccine only, meaning that we had the right to refuse it. I have an article following the Frago which explains this, and you can see this in many other places. I ran out of time. If somebody could yield me a little more time, I'll finish and I won't filibuster.
We'll allow that.
Thank you. The point is that the FDA did a magic trick with a rabbit in a hat to make the Pfizer-BioNTech pseudo-FDA approved, and the very next day, DOD and Secretary Austin did another magic trick and put out his memo with the mandate for an FDA-approved vaccine. Finally, I have the January 10th, 2023 memo from Austin, which rescinds the vax mandate. Thank God. The tone of the memo is quite disconcerting. No fault is admitted. Instead, the Secretary is deeply proud of the department's work and speaks of the lasting legacy of his vaccination efforts. On the following page, you can view some of that legacy. A lawyer named Thomas Renz is suing the administration. Key to his 200-page lawsuit is data pulled from DMED, Defense Medical Epidemiology Database. The database is very accurate military health data, far more accurate than the VAERS system. The statistics are shocking. I won't read all of them. Out of 1.2 million active duty members in the USA and almost 800,000 reserve troops, 863,000 developed nervous system diseases in the 6-month period between August of 2021 and this past January 2022. That's 43% of troops and a 1,048% jump over average. I'll let you read the other stats. There's a nice little chart in there that he included in his lawsuit, which is 200 pages long. Another lasting legacy of this illegal effort has been the discharge of 3,700 Marines, 2,041 Navy, 1,841 Army, and 834 Air Force service members. I don't have the local Army National Guard statistics, but I'm sure someone at this hearing does. To temper my comments a bit, I'm grateful for the command for slow walking this and protecting us from the same kind of sudden career death that many full-time soldiers faced right at the end of 2021 when they were refused the vax or had their exemption rejected. Most processed exemptions were rejected. As best as I know, my religious exemption is likely on an electronic file somewhere at the Pentagon, and per the latest vax mandate recession letter from Secretary Austin, will now probably just be blindly approved, which is better than blindly rejected. However, as a Title 32 soldier, and as such, mostly under the command of the governor in the state of Nebraska, I do wish Governor Ricketts would have outright rejected the vax mandates for any soldier in the state military, similar to what Oklahoma or Florida governors did. I feel this bill is the least the state can do to make up for affected soldiers. And quite frankly, the report that is required by this bill would be a good exercise for command to have to go through, to really take a full tally of the kind of career damage which was inflicted on Guard soldiers, which is an important step to making sure those participating will think twice before ever letting anything like this happen again. I do have one suggestion for the bill. It refers to individual members in Nebraska Guard who were discharged due to refusing to receive the COVID-19 vaccine. A refusal has a specific military meaning and refers to soldiers who outright refused the vax without an exemption. Many soldiers like myself had pending exemptions, but we were also negatively affected. I would suggest you add this class of vaccine objector to your bill so there's no ambiguity. Thank you for your chance to testify. I'll take any questions.
Thank you for your testimony, and thank you for your service.
Yes.
Senator Rainbow.
Thank you, Mr. Freouf. You know, this is a lot of very interesting information, so thank you very much for providing it to us. And I know one thing you've highlighted, and I want to get your opinion on it. It says roughly 99% of active duty troops in the Navy, Air Force, and Marine Corps had gotten the vaccine. And then they said, and 98% of the Army. But they did note that the Guard and Reserve rates are lower, but generally are more than 90%. And so, I mean, your circumstances, obviously you had concerns about taking the vaccine, but why do you think so many other of your colleagues got vaccinated?
Well, I mean, there's various reasons. Some of them thought that it was good for them. Some of them just were indifferent and decided they'd just go along with it. And some of them, like the ones I mentioned, the 4 or 5 others in my unit just didn't want to fight it. They fought it at first, but then realized the long haul they were up against. So I guess the other reason it's 90% in the Guard is we had a longer deadline. The Army deadline was, I believe, December 2021. We had till June the following year.
Thank you.
Yep.
Senator Lowe.
Thank you. And thank you, Mark, for testifying today. Do you think that some of those thought, okay, this is my job, I need to do this for my job, I don't want to do it, but I have to do it?
Absolutely, yeah. Some were coerced. It was kind of an arm twisting situation. And that's what it felt like, especially with the magic trick with the Corminati turning into the BioNTech vaccine. I know they could not mandate the vaccine until it was FDA approved. And by that magic trick, which the person who did that, by the way, is now, I've had an article about her, she's stepping down. By that magic trick, they essentially made it possible to mandate the vaccine through that memo. And also in that memo, they went against Army Reg because they wouldn't allow prior immunity to count. A soldier can actually, for any illness, they can show that they have prior immunity and bypass vaccines. They don't normally do that because we're not normally concerned about the flu shot or whatever, but you have the right to, and some do. But this is probably maybe the first time it's become an issue since maybe anthrax, which was before my time.
I don't think there are any other questions. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Are there other proponents?